In this WrestleTalk news, Sasha Banks has had her car broken into. WWE have reached out to an AEW talent to return to the company. Are we seeing the end of NXT UK and more? Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos. Like this weird little story about Vince McMahon making someone hold in their pee during Monday Night Raw.
Support WrestleTalk!
Renee Paquette, the former Renee Young in WWE, not only has a very good podcast where she interviews folks from the wrestling world who then share amazing stories about their time in the business, like Bryan Danielson recently revealing on the show that his behavior on Talking Smack was him actively trying to get himself fired from WWE. She also reveals some bizarre tidbits from her time in the company as well. And on a recent episode of The Sessions, Paquette told a story about how she really needed to pee during the broadcast of an episode of Monday Night Raw, but wasn't allowed to go until after the show was done. In her own words, and I can't believe I'm saying this on an episode of the WrestleTalk news, "My teeth are floating, I had to pee so bad." Clip that out of context. Apparently this situation was exacerbated by Michael Cole and Corey Graves, who kept passing water back and forth while talking about lakes and rivers. Funny lads them. Vince's reaction when the show was over, according to Paquette, was to laugh a lot. She said, you can clip this out of context as well, he loved that I was holding it in all this time. I'm sure it is hilarious, but I've heard that if you hold it, you could damage the prostate gland, making it very difficult to get an erection or even become aroused. And that has to be true because Jim Carrey said it in Liar Liar, and that's a movie where he's not allowed to lie. Speaking of California, the state in which Hollywood is in, and those are the ones who make the movies, making this a great segue, Sasha Banks parked her car there and it got broken into. Banks posted on her Instagram stories that she had left her car parked in Oakland for just 5 minutes, only to return to find that the back window had been smashed in and her possessions had been stolen. Going by her other Instagram stories, it would seem that, thankfully, it was only hair products that had been stolen. But she still seemed very annoyed by all of this, as anyone would. Don't break into cars and steal stuff, folks. It's not cool. What is cool, though, is that it looks like we now have found ourselves in a very, very interesting wrestling landscape. Back in 2019, All Elite Wrestling launched and instantly became the talk of the town, with big former WWE names like Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley deciding to sign with them rather than take WWE offers. Over the last few years, we've seen many other former WWE talents also make the jump, like Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, Keith Lee, Athena, Ruby Soho, Kyle Riley, and more. But aside from Cody Rhodes going back to WWE for WrestleMania this year, it's mostly been one-way traffic. But then Vince McMahon stepped down and retired from WWE during an ongoing investigation over allegations made against him by former female employees, and his son-in-law Triple H took over as head of creative. And now suddenly that one-way traffic has a new lane going the other way. In just a handful of weeks, Triple H has brought back several names that his father-in-law had previously released as part of their quarterly budget cut, like Dakota Kai, Karrion Kross and Scarlett, Dexter Lumis, and 3/4 of Hit Row. Sean Ross Sapp over at Fightful Select reported that Trips wasn't going to pump the brakes on re-signing other released talent. And Fightful spoke to some talent within AEW said they would consider going back to WWE once their contracts are up with All Elite Wrestling. And now it looks like Papa H is putting those chess pieces into place. Fightful Select are reporting that a notable AEW talent was contacted by WWE about them going back to the company. Fightful was first told this by someone within AEW, but then confirmed it with the talent themselves, who wish to remain anonymous for now. The talent in question is under AEW contract, and WWE would have been well aware of that when they made the call. That talent referred WWE to their representation, then informed AEW management that WWE had contacted them, saying that they didn't have a desire to leave All Elite Wrestling. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? It's the sound of Max Caster frantically Googling words that rhyme with contract tampering. But this isn't really contract tampering, at least as far as I'm aware, and SRS certainly isn't claiming that in his report. As far as we can tell, this was just a conversation between WWE and a wrestler from another company, and they just want to see what their options are looking like when their contract comes to an end. They weren't actively negotiating with the talent to come back. But again, that's as far as we're aware. SRS writes in his report, while we can verify the claim was made, we've learned nothing more about the alleged contact. Triple H is clearly looking to make some form of impact in the wrestling world, however, as Fightful ends the story with, sources familiar with the situation have told Fightful there was no mistake, this performer was already under a full-time contract. And perhaps apropos of nothing, SRS also posted this picture of AEW wrestler under full-time contract Bryan Danielson. But before we slam into Speculation Station, this is likely SRS just trolling us. But speaking of Speculation Station, last night's NXT 2.0 Heatwave saw Carmelo Hayes retain his North American Championship, Cora Jade beat her former friend Roxanne Perez, and Mandy Rose retain her NXT Women's Championship over Zoe Stark. But there was a much bigger talking point coming out of the show. During a segment where it looked like we were about to get the breakup of Diamond Mine, they were attacked by Gallus of Wolfgang and Mark and Joe Coffey. Later in the night, Indy Hartwell had a picture torn up by the former Bea Priestley, now Blair Davenport, and following the main event of Bron Breakker retaining his NXT Championship over JD McDonough, Tyler Bate came down to the ring to set himself up as the next challenger for the title. All of those names are from NXT UK. Fightful Select reported ahead of the show that we've heard a lot of chatter about NXT UK talents popping up on NXT TV, and that Bate is one of several names we've heard brought up in regards to NXT UK talent being integrated or featured more on NXT TV. While some are leading with this story as an NXT invasion, it felt more like 5 debuts rather than a group making a name for themselves. The really interesting note around all of this is that Tyler Bate came down holding the WWE United Kingdom Championship. Now I know what you're thinking. Didn't Ilya Dragunov relinquish that title due to injury and they were doing a tournament to crown a new champion? And you'd be right. Bate won that tournament when it was taped on July 7th, but the episode where he wins has not aired yet on the WWE Network, BT Sport, or Peacock, which means that WWE intentionally spoiled the result of that tournament and broke their own continuity to get Bate on NXT TV and challenge Bron Breakker. The pair holding up their respective titles at the end of the show could also indicate we're getting a title unification match down the line. So what does that mean for NXT UK? Thank you for your support on Patreon. He can last Sean Furr longer than you in the ring, and Starbucks Stephen Costa. Get your own Patreon shoutout over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. Dave Meltzer noticed in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter that there is a lot of uneasiness within the NXT UK crew, and this is because their next set of planned TV tapings have been cancelled. The reason given for their cancellation is because the BT studio, where they film episodes of NXT UK and is literally across the road from our own office, has been booked out for coverage of the Premier League and other football now that the new season has kicked off. That's UK football, soccer to our American viewers. Meltzer writes that shutting down tapings is never a good sign, and nobody really has been told anything. NXT UK was supposed to be the first of WWE's big global localization project, where they'd also plan to open NXT Japan and NXT Saudi Arabia. They signed up all of the big UK talents from the Brit Rest scene, and in doing so, effectively closed down a lot of UK independent companies who couldn't draw the same crowds without the names they used to be able to book. But NXT UK never really took off, and it never drew big crowds itself. Promotion of the show is now non-existent, even though it does get very good reviews from the likes of Stephen Larson, who I believe are the only people who still watch the show. In 2021, WWE announced that it was closing down WWE UK Holdings Limited as part of their cost-cutting measures, and it's been rumored for some time that the only reason the brand hasn't been shut down completely is because of WWE's broadcast deal with BT Sport. Though BT Sport prioritizing football over NXT UK, which does make a lot of business sense, can't be a good sign for the brand either. And now taking 5 of their biggest names, including their top champion, can only spell more trouble for NXT UK. JD McDonough, who challenged Bron Breakker for the NXT Championship at Heatwave, was also a call-up from NXT UK. PW Insider also reported that there are no TV tapings for that brand scheduled in Great Britain, but did note that they could tape NXT UK shows at the Performance Center in Orlando. Because that's a great way to promote a UK-specific brand for a UK audience by filming it in America. Speaking of NXT 2.0 Heatwave, and one of the other results on the show was Tony D'Angelo defeating Santos Escobar in a street fight, which means Escobar must now leave NXT. He posted on Twitter a thank you message, and there is rampant speculation that he is main roster bound to either Raw or SmackDown. But there are no reports as to whether he'll go up as a single star or with the rest of his Legado del Fantasma faction. As previously mentioned, Zoe Stark also lost her title match against Mandy Rose and makes her main roster debut this Friday Friday on SmackDown, teaming with Nikita Lyons in the Women's Tag Team Tournament. And these call-ups, returns, and surprises have been paying dividends for Triple H's run as head of creative, as this week's Raw drew 1.98 million viewers. While only 1% up from last week, it's actually 7% up from the previous year, and it finished first in the night on cable, including beating the finale of Better Call Saul in the all-important 18-49 demo. What's also interesting is that while the third hour did have its usual drop, it wasn't as big of a drop as we've seen previously. But what did Ollie Davis think of the show?
If you believe Freud, people's sexual kinks apparently subconsciously find their way into their work. Completely unrelated, here's a picture of Judy Hopps from the movie Zootopia. Also completely unrelated, Triple H opened Raw with Rhea Ripley saying she's Dominic's pappy now, for this week's installment of Let's Dom Dom. Likely building to Dominic's second Who Is Your Daddy match in his life.